thank you so much for this opportunity to come here and learn a little bit more about what's going on in our world. Pray that you will be with all debaters, clear their minds, allow them to think clearly. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, thank you guys so much for coming. This is an event put on by the Young Americans for Liberty, which is a club here on campus. I believe it was formerly known as the Libertarian Club, which is awesome. I want to encourage you guys to use, if you have a Twitter, tonight they're doing a little live tweeting. I'm going to be checking it here on my phone. It's hashtag SAU Debate, so use that. While we're on the topic of cell phones, go ahead and turn your cell phone off, which just means put it on vibrate and text throughout the entire convocation. All right, so we're gonna, to start things out, we're gonna do quick intros of each, one of these individuals and their parties. So we'll start here.
My name is Colin Williamson. I'm a conservative because I believe in the people and the Constitution.
My name is Laura Cole. I am graduating in May with a degree in long-term care administration. And I became part of the Conservative Party after the '08 election when I was too young to vote. I read The Audacity of Hope by our President Obama. Didn't exactly agree with it, so I read a couple other books and found myself here.
My name is Daniel Wallin, and I'm a libertarian because I believe in fiscally conservative views and socially tolerant views as well.
My name is Chris Hudson. I'm an IO Psych major, and I'm a libertarian because I am not smart enough to run your life.
My name is Sarah Roof, and I'm an international studies major. I am a liberal because I believe in equal rights no matter your age, race, nationality, orientation, or how much money you may or may not have.
I'm Joseph Gosen. I'm an international studies Italian emphasis major, and I'm a liberal because I believe in people.
Very good. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. And I'm Garrison Hayes. I am a senior film major, and I'm also your SA president this year. So, yeah, no political affiliations, just SA. So, all right, so let's talk about the details here. Each debater, first of all, let's start out by saying these are not candidates. These are students just like you. So tonight is less of a debate, more of an ideological discussion, we'll say. So let's not, bite each other's heads off here. Each one of you will have 1 minute to answer the questions. There are 6 questions that were agreed upon by these individuals here. And just so you guys know, at the end, we will be having a little bit of time for your questions as well. So hold on to those. If something comes up, make sure you have it ready to go. So let's get started. I'll be keeping time here, and we can get going. So the very first question, just to kind of start things off on a fun note, in Colorado and Washington, recently, they voted to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. However, this is illegal at a federal level. What are your positions for drug policy and the war on drugs? Before we do that, we have to determine who is going to go first. So I wrote down a number between 1 and 10. I'm going to hold it up so that they can see it. So we'll start here.
4.
7.
And the liberals go first. Next is conservatives. After that, we'll have the libertarians. So,
What was the number?
the number was 9.
Okay. I'm curious.
So,
Whenever you're ready.
liberals.
I was curious too.
All right. Well, let me preface this by saying I don't smoke, but I will be arguing for the legalization of marijuana. Let's start at the basics. Marijuana is less harmful than alcohol and tobacco. I think that's all something we can agree upon. And unless it's intentionally added, marijuana does not contain any addictive properties whatsoever. So here's 4 reasons why legalization of marijuana is actually okay. 1, it'll undercut street crime and the drug cartels. If you cut their supply, you cut their money. You cut their money, you cut the organization. 2, if you tax marijuana like alcohol and tobacco, the government's going to bring in a ton of money. Let's take Colorado, and why not Oregon, for example. Colorado brought in $5 million last year alone, simply based on taxing medical marijuana. Oregon, $6.7 million. Don't argue with me, argue with the New York Times on that one. 3, legalization of marijuana reduces the price.
10 seconds.
Thanks, Garrison. If you reduce the price, you reduce the supply. If you undercut, once again, it comes back to economics. You undercut the dealers, you undercut their product, you control the dealers. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, conservatives. Your time
Well,
to start.
this is actually sort of a personal thing for me because I have had immediate family members struggle from substance abuse. And the argument that has been big for the Conservative Party is that it's a gateway drug. And I believe that is true. I think marijuana is a way to escape responsibility and your problems. I don't think it's overall good for the morale. I understand that you could make money off of it, like it could be great for us physically, but you have to have some morality behind the things that you, what you're for. And I think that legalization of marijuana, you know, if you think in choice, but I think that you should have some sort of process into those types of things that, such as they're for in the Americas. Just kidding. You guys have never seen that clip. Anyways, I think it's a way to, thanks, 5 people.
10 seconds.
Anyways, I don't think that it's good for the morality of our country, and I think that it's a bad substance that we shouldn't be legalizing.
And libertarians?
As a libertarian, I first and foremost believe in civil liberties, and that means that we believe you can do whatever you want to your body, with your body, as long as it has no negative impact on those around you. That is where law enforcement and the state comes in. So going back to the original question, I believe the states hold sovereignty over the federal ban on marijuana.
Thank you. All right. Very good. So we'll start with the libertarians on this one. And the next question is about the government spending and the national debt. Our national debt is currently $16.3 trillion. It's gone up every day, $3.87 billion. So that's pretty significant. What needs to be done to reduce the national debt?
First and foremost, I think what we need to do is start off with is questioning what the actual role of the federal government is. If you want a government that provides welfare and protects people from themselves and polices the entire world, well, then we can't really reduce the national debt. But if you want a government that's limited and wants to protect the rights and liberties of the people, then it's definitely possible to cut spending to decrease the national debt. Right now, our interest rate is 3%, which is the lowest it's been in 50 years. That's the interest rate on our debt right now. So it's vital to pay down our debt right now while the interest rates are so low until they go back up, which they will. The fastest, easiest way to reduce the national debt is to cut spending. But even if you cut all discretionary spending, which includes the military, it still won't balance the budget. So you have to be willing to put entitlement programs on the table. You have to be willing to make reforms or pass them on to the state level.
And on the conservative side,
sorry,
you need to be willing to...
Your time's up. Conservatives, national debt.
I believe there's this plan that a representative in Florida put forward. His name's Connie Mack, and also Mike Enzai. It's called the 1 cent solution. You can look it up. There's a website. The idea is to make a budget. Obviously, we need to kind of cut down with our spending, but to make a balanced budget, and then in that budget, year 1, we would cut by 1%. So every dollar that we would spend, we would save we would cut 1% out, and so on through the years. And the idea is that if one plan isn't cuttable by 1%, let's say it's not flexible enough, then perhaps you could cut another plan by 2%. Anyways, it's the 1 cent solution, and we are talking about debt, right? Okay, yeah. And and so that's what I think is a good way. First of all, but the
10
most important thing for
seconds.
me is a budget and to just kind of get back into. In 6 years, they project to be back in out of debt.
Very good. And liberals, what do we do about the debt?
Well, it's a problem. I think we can all agree on some solutions. We agree in some reasonable cuts as well. Closing tax loopholes, definitely cutting our defense budget. I know during the elections there we're talking about keeping it at the current rate or even extending it. Of course, we're drawing down 2 wars. That's a big reason why we've spent so much money is Iraq and Afghanistan in the past decade. But when conservatives start talking about cutting programs for poor people and how this will save our economy, $500 million in food stamps, I saw one proposal, that's not going to bring us out of this bad economy. And when we start talking about cutting social programs for poor people that rely on that, you're talking about taking away people's disposable income to jumpstart the economy. So if they can't put food on their table or pay for some basic health care, they won't be able to go out and buy the latest electronic for Christmas, which is actually good for everyone because it
5
bumps the
seconds.
economy back up. So you need to spend money to make money.
Interesting. All right. So our next question for our conservatives. What should the role of the federal government be in education, specifically student loans and student debt?
I believe that the educational system in our country has faltered to a point where we are now on most lists in the double digits rather than a leading force in the world. And I believe that's disgraceful because we are a leader among nations. We are a country that has decided that we are going to take a place in the world stage. And if our people can't match what our views for where the country is going, we can't hope to achieve anything on the world stage. And so I believe that we should commit as many resources as we can to education because I believe that the people of this country deserve to know where they're going. And if they're going to have a say, they should be educated to the point where they can make an educated decision on what they want. Education is the primary force in democracy. And if we're going to pretend to be a democracy, our people need to know what they're voting for.
So just a quick question as it relates to that. How do you suggest that how do you suggest that we do that? Do we increase the money given for student loans or?
Quite honestly, I think that private institutions like this one are the best places to get an education, but not everybody has the funds to go there. So I do believe that there is a place for public education in the country. At the same time, I believe that the people don't necessarily have the right to a better education than everyone else, but we live in a country where I believe that is one thing we can make a privilege. And therefore, I believe that it would be a good idea to subsidize private universities with loans and with
Thank you. Same thing to the libertarians.
Check, check. Education is best provided by the free market. The reason education is so expensive is because we've had a government so involved in it recently. We spend more on education than any country in the entire world. And are our test scores that great? No. On the topic, you talked about student loans. Okay, I think there's been some talk about bailing out or forgiving all student loans. First of all, loans are voluntary. Students know exactly what they're getting into, and if you think the loans are too complicated, well, then for students, then that's an argument for kids not to go to college. They're not smart enough to go to college if they can't understand getting a loan. But beyond that, bailouts are never a good idea. It's never a good idea to socialize losses while privatizing profits. That's what the banks did, and at the taxpayers' expense.
Liberals weigh in.
All right. Well, I agree with Colin. Education is very important, and giving a ton of money to banks is also very scary. I agree, Chris. But college is way too expensive, and liberals, we're all about investing to get something back. So, for example, we talk about the importance of education, but some conservatives don't want to pay the money to invest in it. Tennessee currently ranks in the bottom 10 for quality of education. We also rank in the bottom 10 for how much we spend on education. Now, I see a correlation there as a lifelong Tennessean. So if we have all this talk, everybody wants to support it, but put your money where your mouth is. We think everyone deserves a chance at good schooling, no matter if you're born in low-income, government-assisted projects or in Collegedale, Tennessee. So that takes money, but it also takes good teachers, which takes good training of the teachers, which also takes money. But again, it also takes people who have gone to school to know the value of it. And so I think that's something we can all work on. We're all here. We'll all graduate, hopefully, and we can, I don't know, pass that on to our kids.
Thank you. We'll start with the liberals one more time with this one. As of 2010, America's healthcare system is ranked by World Health Organization 37th in the world. Does the government have a place in healthcare, and what should it be?
Garrison, I'm going to clear up a myth right now. A lot of people seem to think that the government will be running insurance in 2014. Fallacious. The government will mandate it. It will not run it. Thing is, in 2014, there are going to be healthcare exchanges, and what that's going to do is provide healthcare for the 40 million people in America that do not have it. Now, that number should ring a bell with you guys, because 40 million people not having healthcare in the most developed and most powerful country in the world, that's just wrong. So, healthcare in America has to achieve three aims. One, it has to reduce cost. Cost is spiraling out of control. The U.S. spends 16 to 17% of its GDP on healthcare alone. Compare that to Germany, or Norway, or any other European country. It's twice as much. Two, it has to provide quality.
10 seconds.
Oh, well, okay. It's not well controlled today. Three, you have to give people access to healthcare. Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, it does all three. It improves quality, it increases access by giving people insurance, and it reduces the cost. Because if you pull people out of hospitals or healthcare providers, they're not going to be charging a lot. And therefore, with lower cost, you have more people getting health insurance.
Okay, I see the libertarians are talking here. How you feel?
Well, first of all, I think there's a misconception that people have a right to health care. You don't have a right to what someone else has. I don't have a right to Daniel's iPhone. But there is a problem. Like, we do have a messed up healthcare market. And it's because we haven't had capitalism. We've had corporatism. We've had where these big insurance companies and the pharmacy companies get these special privileges from government, and that creates monopolies, and that raises prices. The same thing with education. The more the government gets involved, the more prices are waged. An easy way to reduce prices is increased competition. Like, why is it illegal to buy health insurance across state lines? That makes no sense.
That's unconstitutional.
10 seconds.
Well, he just said it's unconstitutional for the government to mandate a person to buy a product. The government can't mandate me to buy a car. It can't mandate me to buy a computer. It's my personal choice. Should you buy health care? Yes. But it's not. It's your choice, not the government's.
More for
All right, conservatives.
My view is actually very similar to Chris's. I've always said that Americans, we've kind of gotten into this habit that we think that everything is our right, but really everything is just a privilege. And when it comes to insurance, there's 1,500 insurance companies. When I get in a car wreck, I don't then call the car insurance company and ask for car insurance. I get that beforehand. My other problem with Obamacare is that they've cut from Medicare, and that's an important topic to me as going to the nursing home industry, because that cuts care for our elderly. Believe it or not, it does affect it. And also cutting Medicare, it increases unemployment because people aren't able to pay their employees. And so that's some of my issues that I have with just Obamacare.
Thank you. All right. We're talking about rights here. In the last election, 4 states voted to legalize same-sex marriage. How would you define marriage, and what role does the government have to play? We'll start with the libertarians.
As a Bible-believing Christian, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. As an American citizen, I believe that these two issues are separate. I believe in the separation of church and state principle. Thus, the federal government has no role and no say in how marriage is supposed to be instituted.
Concise. Conservatives.
I agree with Daniel entirely. I do believe that there is a place in the government for civil liberties. That's not a view that's traditionally consistent. Civil liberties. That was a misstatement. For civil unions. That's not traditionally accepted by conservatives, but I do believe that in the interest of separating church and state in marriage matters, that rights can be granted to people who choose to live together outside of a marriage relationship.
I believe that within the marriage relationship, if these states, which they did, voted to legalize same-sex marriage, that that's okay, as a libertarian. Just distinguishing.
So, Colin, is that your personal belief, or is that something that is held amongst most conservatives?
It's mostly my personal belief.
Okay. Liberals.
That really kind of jives with what we believe, except we believe that marriage should be offered if the states vote for everyone. And I can separate my personal religious beliefs from the state of marriage as a civic union because I believe in separation of church and state. You know, when you have a gay couple or a lesbian couple that's been together, 40 years, and one of them has cancer and is dying in the hospital, that partner should have visitation rights. That partner should have power of attorney. It's just common sense. And so that's the kind of things we're talking about when we're talking about rights that come with same-sex marriage. You don't have to agree with it, but as a Christian, I don't feel that it interferes with my Christianity.
Very good. Very good. Changing gears a bit. What do you see as the role of the United States foreign policy in the world community? Specifically, what would the role of the United States military be? We'll start here. Conservatives.
A long time ago, after the first building of our nation, we developed a policy of manifest destiny. That meant that everything on the continent was ours and that we would take it. In that regard, we did a pretty good job. Since then, it has been our role and our self-proclaimed right to be a world leader. I don't necessarily believe that that's the best idea, but it is the idea that we've had, and we are a world leader at this point. To draw out would be a disgrace because we have so many resources dedicated all over the world that pulling out would bring so many other countries down with us that we cannot pull out all at once. I believe that adopting a new philosophy of internal affairs and not
10 seconds.
not interfering with other countries as often is a good plan, but it's not something we can do right now. It's going to be a slow process.
Thank you. Liberals.
I'm going to specifically address the military part of the question. I'm going to quote Ron Paul, a dear friend and a person to many libertarians I know. We have over 900 overseas bases and military personnel in over 130 countries. Why? That's what I want to know. Why? War isn't fought on a grand scale anymore. Look at the Osama bin Laden raid. It was carried out by about 30 guys that went in and got out in about 3 hours. You ended a war in 3 hours, and you're telling me we need, I don't know, more subs and more aircraft carriers when those things have become useless? No. We spend about $711 billion, or 4.7% of our GDP, on the military. We need to learn how to fight wars effectively, and we need to learn that when you cut spending to the military, you're not cutting the military, you're streamlining it and making it a more efficient machine.
I was pleasantly surprised by the Ron Paul reference. Good stuff. Yeah, as he mentioned, we are spread way too thin in way too many countries, spending money doing what? Policing the world. As a libertarian, I believe we are not the policemen of the world, and in fact, that is one of the reasons why we are one of the most hated people around the world. We just walk in and mess with people's business. I believe, as a libertarian, that the role of government and its military is to defend and protect the citizens of the United States. Nothing more, nothing less. So we should not be in all these places. We should have a clear Congress-approved and declared war. The last constitutionally approved war was World War II. There's Vietnam, Korea, Iraq.
And we're broke.
And we're broke. We can't afford these anymore. No more war.
That was different from what you guys said.
I think if Dr. Paul was so afraid of what Bush was hiding, then maybe he should have introduced some sort of articles of impeachment to the House. Or
Well, the fact that he was hiding that there were no WMDs in Iraq
that's
is
all I'm
pretty
saying.
telling.
That's all I wanted to say.
Illegal.
I can't hear what he's saying.
Lying to the American people is still illegal, last
So
I checked.
I'm just saying, why didn't he say anything? Why didn't he
I
stand up?
think it's interesting that nothing changed from Bush to Obama. Nothing has changed on the military stance. I mean, we are sending out more and more drones. We are attacking more and more countries. Things need to actually quantifiably change with our foreign policy.
I'd like to address the statement that lying to the American people is illegal. Lying to a court, lying to Congress, lying to the chief executive, all of those are crimes. Lying to people cannot be illegal. Otherwise, it would be illegal to cheat on your wife. As of now, it is not illegal to cheat on your wife. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it is not illegal. Lying is very legal. And in the interest of security and the protection of our people, lying to our people, I'm sorry to admit it, is often necessary.
Didn't Nixon say that? I think he said that.
Wasn't he a Democrat?
If you can find a Republican that will claim Nixon, props.
And Bush lied about the WMDs in Iraq, but who's counting?
It is
Which is why we need to break the left-right stigma and actual change.
All right. Thank you. It is 7:30, and we are now open for questions. Thank you guys so much for those questions. So if I could get I saw a lot of hands, and this is the most convenient one for me to go to. So if we could quiet down.
I just want to know what's your guys' plan on immigration? Because my parents were immigrants, and I want to see what you guys say about that.
And who is this question directed to? The entire panel? We'll start with the libertarians on that one. Immigration. Still 1 minute. Your time has started. Libertarians.
Oh, about immigration? Right now, we actually have a net of negative immigration, so people are leaving this country because our economy is so bad. I think that we need to have safer legal immigration.
Immigration reform.
Yeah, basically.
Make it easier to keep the smart people that want to come to our country and make it better.
Basically that. But I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with checking people as they come in, but I do think that it's too complicated, and we want to have people want to come to this country, not leave.
And liberals.
Immigration. Now that's fun. Okay, so immigration does need reform because there's not really really a clear policy. I had some close friends who got to experience this process recently, and my friend was marrying an American girl. He was from Argentina. He said, okay, I'm going to do this the legal way. About $10,000 later, he made it to the shores of America, and maybe 2 years later, it's super, super, super hard to do it legal. And now he's a skilled worker. He was a doctor. And we do have a lot of skilled people that come here. We also have a lot of unskilled people that come here, and I think that's a good thing. And when I say unskilled, I just mean like college degree. Migrant workers. Did anyone see the Stephen Colbert segment when he went to work as a migrant worker for a day? Yeah, who wants to do that? Raise your hand. Yeah, no one. Throughout our history, we've taken advantage, honestly, of people who want to come here and work for really cheap. The Chinese with the railroads, the Irish. So, okay, regardless, immigration needs reform, but immigrants are a good thing. We are a country of immigrants. Raise your hand if you're not an immigrant.
Conservatives.
My view is just kind of similar. As long as there's some sort of reform and they become contributing members of society, more power to you.
Okay. Next question. I saw this hand back here. If you could just speak loudly, please. And who is that question to exactly? The entire panel once again? All right, we'll start with conservatives.
Good point.
I believe that our nation, its foremost goal is to protect the American people. I believe, especially written in the Constitution, under the powers of each of the branches, the first thing usually stated is the defense of the people. I believe that that should be indicative of our budget. I believe that the major goal of the federal government is to protect us, and that to do so effectively, we should have the largest military on the planet. Because what better way to protect us than to be indestructible?
Okay. God bless America. We'll go to the liberals. Far end.
Joseph, are we indestructible?
Do I need to talk about 9/11? I don't think so. We're not indestructible. And here's the problem, guys. War is changing. We fight differently. So we need to learn how to spend differently, too. I talked about it earlier. If you invest more into your special operations troops, you can surgically neutralize threats. You cut the head off the snake can't bite you. That's what we did to Al-Qaeda. That's what we did to the Taliban. That's what we've done to everybody that's ever screwed with us. We go in, small, take care of them. America.
I think one of the biggest things we also need to realize as American citizens is that we should never be prompted to be giving up any of our own liberties just to feel more secure. The government isn't going to be making us more secure by taking away our liberties.
Yep.
We have just a few seconds, so we'll allow a couple of rebuttals.
Yes, our major engagements in taking out bin Laden were carried out by small individuals. The thousands of terrorist attempts that are thwarted every day were not carried out by individual people in foreign countries. They were carried out by the largest infrastructure for preventing terrorism in the world. And that is why I believe we should have a large military. Defense, not aggression.
If your point is defense, not aggression, then maybe we should withdraw our troops from 130 countries, because that's not defending anything. How would you feel if, I don't know, let's say North Korea came into Collegedale and said, hey guys, we're going to pop a base down here, we're going to put in a couple thousand guys and say, oh, hope you don't have a problem with that. If you do, we'll nuke you. Because that's what we do, and it's not right. That's not defending America. That's, I don't know, blatant aggression. It's policing the world, thank you. We're not the international police force. That's why we have Interpol. That's not America.
I actually agree with both sides. You can. The thing that we need to understand is that we can have the strongest military in the world and cut spending and cut it drastically. Just because you throw money at something doesn't make it more efficient. Like I said, with education, we spend more on education than any country in the world, yet we have very low test scores. Just because we throw money at something doesn't make it efficient.
Thank you. All right, we have a question here, and then we'll.
Going back to the issue on gay marriage, there's I just want to give an example and see what you guys think of it. If I were to own an orphanage as a Christian, my personal view would not allow for me to allow a great gay couple to come and adopt from my agency. How does this correlate with religious freedom? If I don't want to allow them to adopt from my agency, wouldn't that interfere with my religious freedom if I told them they couldn't just because they're gay? And how would you deal with something like that?
Go ahead.
Libertarian. As a privately owned orphanage, they have the right to choose.
Since you guys are privately owned, you can do whatever you want because there's more than just one orphanage in America. So, I mean, I think we're big on separation of church and state. So you can do what you want. I'm not, if I was the government, if I was the president, I'm not going to mandate saying, oh, you guys have to let gay people adopt because there's thousands of orphanages. Just because one says no doesn't mean a gay couple can't walk down the street and find one that says yes. So that's your thing. You do what you want to do.
And conservatives.
I think that's a really good question because I think religious liberties and equality, I think it kind of gets kind of gray because it's like, when do we know which one is more important? And so I would hope that, that wouldn't ever really be the case. Like you said, like the government wouldn't, because if it's privately run, they wouldn't make you. But I don't want it to expand from there. And I think that if you're going to change gay marriage, you should, change marriage and allow same-sex marriage, you should change it across the board. Allow polygamy too.
All right.
I'll say this about polygamy. A lot of times in polygamy, it's not consensual. Just look at the fundamental Latter-day Saint church. So that's like a whole nother ballgame.
Okay. All right. So if you have a question, because I can't get to all you and I don't see each hand going up in row and in order, if you could just come down here. I have seen Chris Lovato and Mark Walters, but please just form a line right here.
You kind of just answered this, and this question is, I guess, mainly for Laura, because on the issue of gay marriage, I felt like everyone just kind of agreed. If anybody else felt like that, but yeah. So could you maybe present a more classically conservative approach to gay marriage?
Again, I was reading Twitter.
Could you?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's okay. It's all right. Presidents go on golf trips and stuff, so it's fine. Can you just present a more classically conservative view of gay marriage?
Okay. A classically conservative view of gay marriage should be between a man and a woman. And what else did you want me to say?
The classical view of gay marriage is that
woman,
gay marriage can't exist.
It can't exist there.
Civil union or otherwise, it won't exist. That's the classically conservative view.
Yeah. I don't know what else he really wanted me to say, and I apologize. I'm sorry. My view was different than Colin's. I believe in the 23rd doctrine of the Adventist Church, which is between it's a man and a woman, if you didn't know that. And someone dropped their ID card. And yeah.
Next question.
Yeah, next question, repeating myself.
What do you think about the Stop Online Piracy Act that was presented by Lamar Smith earlier this year, and the multiple bills that are essentially the same thing that have been renamed and keep being presented to Congress?
Let's start with the liberals on this one.
Can you say that a little louder? I missed the last part.
I was just saying that the bill has been renamed different things multiple times, and it keeps being represented to Congress. I guess initially it was presented by Republican Lamar Smith, so I guess this question is more directed to the Republican panel.
I don't agree with censoring the internet. I don't think very many people in here do. Do you have anything to add? I don't agree with it. No.
The internet is bigger than the United States. If you believe in the power of the UN, then let them police it. Otherwise, it's not the responsibility of any government to police something that's international.
Do you guys have anything to say about that? Anything different than what they just said?
Raise your hand if you've ever downloaded a song illegally.
Come on.
Illegally, piracy. Y'all did it. Don't lie. Don't lie. You all done it. All right, guys, check it out. Piracy is illegal. I know we've all done it, and for all intents and purposes, we should all probably be in jail. It's illegal. It's stealing. I agree with my conservative friends when they say the government shouldn't police the internet. But when you're stealing from artists, okay, fine. The argument goes they make millions of dollars. They won't hurt. They won't feel it. It's still stealing. It's the moral fiber of it. You know, it's wrong. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Government shouldn't regulate morality or enforcement.
Yeah, but it's stealing. I mean, you can't argue with the fact that it's kind of stealing. So, I mean, don't do it, but the government shouldn't really regulate the internet. They should regulate the stealing of private property, just like they do patents and stuff.
Yeah, I agree with both sides, actually, again.
10 seconds.
Just like most government regulations and laws, it had good intentions with unintended consequences.
Okay, we're going to move on.
How do you feel about America tolerating a nuclear Iran or North Korea with potentially aggressive leaders?
Who is that question to everyone? Yep. All right.
Can I take that one, Garrison?
We'll start with the liberals.
Sweet. I guess here's my problem with that. Pakistan has nukes, in case you didn't know. India has nukes, in case you didn't know. China has nukes. Russia has nukes. None of these governments are especially friendly to the United States. Yep. So I guess my question is, who are we to dictate who can have nukes and who can't? Now, before you guys get on me for saying that, you have to remember, it's one thing to have a nuke. It's a completely other thing to be able to deliver it. Iran does not have the capability to deliver a nuke to America. They don't have launchers. What they would have to do is smuggle it in through Mexico, through the cartel drug tunnels, and set it off somewhere in Texas. That's the only way that's going to happen. Same thing for North Korea. They don't have the technology to send a nuke across the biggest ocean in the world and hit California. Not going to happen.
Agreed? Good, thank you. Next question.
There has been a recent trend.
Oh, no, I was just commenting myself. I agree.
I don't agree.
Yeah, I thought I saw the agree. Okay, go ahead.
Recently, Iran was classified as a non-aggressive nation by the Obama campaign. I do not believe that people who openly burn our flag in the streets can be classified as non-aggressive. And therefore, in the interest of the protection of our people, I do believe that we should do everything in our power to prevent them from having a nuclear weapon. And in that regard, I don't believe that anyone other than us should have a nuclear weapon. I don't believe we should have nuclear weapons, but unfortunately, the only way we can keep other people from having nuclear weapons is having nuclear weapons.
Sounds like government regulation to me.
Last I checked, the Supreme Court ruled that burning the flag was a freedom of speech. I don't agree with it, but we shouldn't be stifling people's freedom of speech. And therefore, it's not an act of aggression. An act of aggression would be attacking the embassy, which they did back in the 70s, and we kicked their butts. America.
Anything else on that topic? Conservatives?
Because we're American.
We're moving on. We're moving on.
There has been a recent trend in government spending to move away from scientific endeavors, space exploration, NASA, things like that. Especially with the retiring of the space shuttle, it doesn't look like there's going to be another manned mission in the near future. What's your opinion? Should we be doing more, less?
Libertarians.
Should the government be doing less? Is that what the question? Yes. Okay, that's actually one thing I really agree with the Obama administration. Now maybe we'll actually get some science done. When the government does something, it's a monopoly, and whenever there's a monopoly, there's no competition, and you get low-quality products. When the government of Germany took over the car industry, the best car they could produce was the Trabant. Does anybody know what that is?
Exactly.
You had to put gas in it, you had to mix gas and oil and then shake the car up. Now we have multiple companies, aerospace companies, competing for space travel, and they're actually doing quite well. You should research it.
Free markets.
We agree with, or I agree at least with what Chris
I do
just
too.
said. But I would add that science, like programming, is basically on the table with this fiscal cliff negotiations, and it's sad because we are falling behind, like Colin referenced earlier, in world test scores, especially among science. So we should have more emphasis on that, if not maybe the NASA, Star Wars, Soviet-era space program.
Thank you. Anything from the conservatives?
According to the Constitution, one of the few powers Congress has is to fund the exploration of scientific endeavors. I believe that we should use that to the best of our ability. I believe that we should be a nation leading in science as we lead in everything else. I believe that we should be the foremost expert and not let Japan take it over from us. I like Japan. I agree with them on a lot of things, but I don't think they should be better than us. I like America.
God bless America. All right. Next question.
This is for the entire panel. What's your view on Obama's newest tax proposal and how that'll affect small businesses?
We'll start with the libertarians again on this one.
Could you go into a little more detail on the ramifications of this tax proposal?
There's so many.
Well, specifically how in the higher bracket it's going to affect like those who are making about like 250, and more. It's going to, well, I've personally read articles on how that will make small businesses, have less revenue in the end,
I'm against giving any money to a federal government that hasn't passed a budget in years.
Thank you.
So I'm definitely against any tax increases. And the thing is, when you look at history, despite the tax rates, revenues have been relatively the same. So there's no connection between tax rates, especially for the top bracket, and revenue to the government.
I don't think anybody wants to see small business fail. I think everybody's in the court of let's support small business. As for the tax brackets, at least what I believe, I think it is fair to ask wealthier Americans to go back to the original tax rate back in before the 2001 tax cuts by Bush, when we are in such a clear economic crisis, especially when, okay, let's say there are no tax increases. Well, and then they want to cut all these social programs. But how are you going to pay for this debt? Like, everybody wants the same outcome, but it's just how we get there. So, like, it's tricky. I can't solve this really big problem because everyone else is struggling with it too. But again, small business, I really think people want to support that. Unfortunately, it's clearing through all the stats and the rhetoric and the cable news, whatever, and finding out, okay, will this proposal actually help small business?
For the interest of time, we're going to allow the conservatives, and then we'll move on to our last question.
I'd like to address two things. First, the concept of taxing the wealthy. Our nation was founded on the principle of the more you work, the more successful you are. And the more successful you are, the more money you make. I don't believe it should be a punishment to be successful. I believe in a country where we promote people trying to make it in the world. And the concept of not working and not being successful and then having everything handed to you, I don't agree with either. So I believe in a system that is fair on both of those fronts. And then the other thing I want to address is we currently have a system where we ask our taxpayers to give us money, and then we give it back to them either in refunds or in social programs. I think it would be a lot smarter to not ask them to pay us as much money. Let them keep their money. Let them be wealthy of their own free will, and let us not give money to them. Don't make them dependent on the government. Make them independent people.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say one thing. Yeah, it's a myth that poor people aren't hardworking. I'd like to dispel that right now. The janitors, the waiters, the nannies, the housekeepers. Let's think about that.
They have just as much opportunity to excel, though.
We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna move on to our next question. Next question. Let's give our respect and attention to my man here.
Malarkey.
Hey, Joe Biden.
This question is going to be for the whole panel. recently it's been brought to my attention that in the next 3 to 4 months, Southern is going to be putting out some signs reiterating our policy of no weapons on campus. And of course, that's something that's mandated both by Tennessee law and in some cases by federal law. So my question to you is, what should we be doing and what should the role of government be on allowing us or disallowing us to protect ourselves in an educational setting?
We'll start with this end and move down.
I believe that you have the right to own a weapon. I think it's in our Constitution somewhere. I understand that there's a lot of gun-related deaths, and maybe we shouldn't just have as violent stuff on television. As Angus Jones just said, you don't think the stuff on television affects your brain, go do some research on it. Maybe we should, not that I'm all for like policing everything, but we're very violent people. It sucks, but you can still own your gun.
Thank you.
Just don't kill me.
It is a private campus, though, and therefore,
Oh, yeah.
as much as you have a right to own a gun, you don't have a right to bring it wherever you want. And therefore, it's up to the campus to decide.
Libertarians?
The question was about gun laws. You have a right, excuse me, you have a right to your life and you have a right to defend your life, so I don't think that there should be a prohibit on you owning a weapon or defending your life. I don't have a problem with certain states deciding that they want to have certain background checks on weapons or weapon ownership, but it's definitely not the federal government's job.
And finally, liberals.
I'm going to preface this by saying that my family owns weapons. We own guns. But, we got an email saying that we could bring the Constitution, so I brought it. Amendment 2 says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let's unpack that for a second.
For a second.
For a second, Garrison. For a second. Back when the Constitution was written, the states had militias that were, they were formed of citizens. And the states couldn't provide weapons for the citizens because they were poor. The states themselves were poor. So the Constitution was written to say that you need to provide your own gun because you're going to be in the militia and you're going to be defending your state. Now let's fast forward to today. We have the National Guard. A federal agency provides its weapons. The federal government provides the weapons. The citizens don't. So when people start saying that I have the right to own a gun, you really need to think about that. Are you in the National Guard? No, you're not. You're not part of the militia. The militia is the National Guard. So, in my opinion, the Second Amendment needs to be, for lack of a better term, amended to say that private citizens have the right to own guns because they're private citizens. Because as it stands now, the Second Amendment says that we have the right to own guns to provide for a militia.
Okay. The question asker doesn't feel like his question has been answered yet.
They did.
Who?
Education.
So, to rebut. Okay, so go ahead, libertarians.
I also got an email, and it said that I could bring 2 pages of notes. So for those 2 pages of notes, I brought the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for the people to dissolve the political bands, I'll stop there. How are we supposed to defend ourselves from our government without bearing weapons? Yes, your point is valid. The weapons are supposed to be used for a militia, but that militia is also supposed to be used to protect us from our own government. And therefore, individual people should also be allowed to have weapons.
That's basically what I was going to say. The Second Amendment isn't to protect the individual's rights to go hunting or to protect your purse. It's to protect you from the state. If you want to control the people, disarm the people.
Okay. Well, I think that has been amazing. We've had a great time. Everybody put your hands together for our debaters. Thank you so much for coming. If you have questions, I'm sure you can come down here and ask them, see them around campus. Thanks for coming out.